As our society and business scramble into the age of information, it seems the ivory tower is still scrambling to understand the implications of how to get information and its importance in the 21st century. After reading Workplace Literary Skills: How Information and Digital Literacy Affect Adaptation of Digital Technology, Nico S. 2022, one has to wonder how 20 pages can be spent on such a subject. The real question if, is if it is worth the read, but that is how the ivory tower, academic American academia, chooses to grapple with anything, and its value is questionable other than to invent and explain all of the implications of how knowledge of how to get information is now more important than knowledge is as we enter the second quarter of the 21st century. There is some value in the introduction of terms and simply the acknowledging how our society has shifted the value in the ability to get information as opposed to simply possessing the information. However, there is monotony and redundancy in combining, multiplying all of the said terms and providing detailed explanation of all of the said terms and variations. At some point, reading through this article becomes a useless burden. For example, whether or not something is using TAM, AI, or DL, whatever. In all of those cases, it is more important to find different ways to gather the information needed. The same goes for the understanding value of the various ways to gather information. Perhaps it is an overreaction of the ivory tower. They do have a place in this global economy. Teaching how to get information is not that different from the skills and information itself. The fear of displacement is real, and how the ivory tower should be able to adapt in 20 pages or less. It doesn't need sophisticated padding and fills that could be deliberately numbing to the point of distraction. The article lacks is what the article lacks is the emphasis on the practical rather than the producing redundancy that will distract and cause the reader/student to lose interest. For two reasons, the article will not suggest how this subject should be restructured, but the best suggestion is to emphasize the practical rather than the 20-page minimum. In defense of the ivory tower, attitudes have shifted as far as the length of papers and assignments. Although the modern age, where and how to get information is more important than the information itself, it does not create less work without being obsolete. It needs to be stated that this review is just one person's opinion. Although it's hard for at least one person to have trouble going through the whole 20 pages, that does not mean that a significant population of the ivory tower and whoever else has the attention span to grasp the concept of the shift in learning of the 20th century, 21st century. Perhaps it is necessary to list and discuss all of the variations and permutations of this shift. Perhaps the differences are more important. Just one reader should not be the final judge of this issue. There is the possibility that having similar variations on the theme should only get through to some educators on how and who to teach this extremely important subject. The shift from teaching information, from simply learning information and using it on demand, to finding the information is truly seismic to the ivory tower. Such a shift demands re-examination of the entire structure of the ivory tower. Such re-examination has always been important, and the ivory tower has been resistant to this. So it's better that this article has been written as a whole rather than writing the first and last page and leaving the rest blank. It is important question to determine the relevance of every variation, but should it not be agreed upon which ones are important to everyone in the ivory tower? Perhaps some of us need to work on our attention span as much as we notice it in our students.